Yes, Ingrid, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation. So we have arrived to the final session of today. We have one more quick panel/fireside chat in front of us, and it is going to be one of the most interesting sessions of today. I am absolutely sure of that. We are going to be talking about building and backing defense AI. I mean, we have talked about AI already a lot throughout the day today in the context of information warfare, cognitive warfare, but also in the actual military sense of the word. So now we are bringing together an entrepreneur and an investor to explore the founder-investor dynamic when both sides share a technical worldview and also how this shapes conviction, speed, and risk-taking. So let me invite our panelists of this session on stage. First up, Lau Nørgaard, co-founder and CTO at Sapient Perception. An engineer and technology leader, has been working at the intersection of AI, imaging, and UAV payloads for more than 20 years. He has built high-performance camera and vision systems. Now at Sapient Perception, he is working on large area intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as well as edge processing and turning ultra-high resolution image data into actual real-time decision. Lau Nørgaard, please come on the stage. And on the investor side of things, in the red corner, is Jarek Pilarczyk, partner at Balnord. Right. So before becoming a VC, he actually also founded and led technology companies through 2 successful exits. But as an investor, Jarek backs technically ambitious B2B companies that are applying software, data, and AI to strengthen the resilience of critical industries and advance European technological sovereignty. To moderate this conversation, we have our very own Fiona, Alston, reporter at Resilience Media. Fiona covers the Nordics and the Baltics, and she is also the English editor at FOMO Observer, which is a publication that's covering the Estonian startup ecosystem. Now, since this is the final session, there's also time for me to bid my goodbyes. You will not see me on stage anymore today. Thank you so much for being an absolutely amazing audience. And please give a round of applause to this last panel and yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andre. Okay, since we are the last panel, we very much appreciate you all still being here. And we know how tired you are if you came on a very early morning flight, so we appreciate it. We have said, though, if we see anybody starting to doze off, we were discussing this earlier, we have a man from musical theatre, someone from a rock band, and I'm pretty good at karaoke, so we can liven things up if you're starting to doze off. Okay, so our conversation tonight, this evening, is going to be about the relationship between investor and the founders. So first of all, we're going to discuss how Balnord managed to raise their investment last year, their fund last year. How easy or difficult was that for you?
Yeah, that was actually very interesting times because, of course, we know that there was not a lot of liquidity on the market at that time. So, of course, lack of liquidity also impacts the investors that are allocating their money into VC. So, definitely, end of 2023, 2024, and even 2025 was a bit difficult time to fundraise, especially for emerging managers. I've transitioned from exiting my last company and stepping into the VC. And of course, when we also decided to fundraise, talking about dual use and defense, I was a kind of a hard thing because there was ESG, which we might still remember, kind of the main topic in Europe. And as Peter from IFO, CEO of IFO, mentioned, they've been trying to play around the ESG, the S as a security. We've been trying to push like ESG plus D as an additional component to the whole setup. So it's kind of a more digestible for LPs. So yeah, it definitely was a bit of a challenge. But when we kind of decided to do our first close with the private investors and start investing and showing really what we're investing into, then we started to onboard larger investors, and then we've been able to oversubscribe the fund. So that was a great journey.
Congratulations. Okay, so obviously there's a relationship going on here. You have managed to raise 2 million pre-seed, which we've got to admit, that's very impressive. Well done. So how did this come about? How did your relationship begin?
Yeah, so we were 3 guys, former colleagues that had an idea. And thought we saw a need and an application and some tech, and we needed some funds to actually go build it. So we naively thought that we'll just go through our network and raise some money, and how hard can it be? And we were, of course, severely humbled in that process. So we got some help and found an advisor and so on, and did about 100 pitches last year, I think, which wears you down over time. But it was the journey. And basically, we had 3 CVs and a PowerPoint slide deck. And that PowerPoint slide deck, it of course improved over time.
Yeah.
No, but it was the challenge for us in that situation was that we, from our previous careers, knew pretty well what we had to build.
Yeah.
We had built similar products many times and had we can do this. We believe in the application, we believe in the tech, we just had to find somebody who could see the same thing. And Balnord was actually one of the first VCs we talked to that asked some of the right questions, and it was an interesting challenge.
So what did you see in them?
Yeah, first of all, as you might see from our haircuts, we're both engineers from the background. I also kind of, developed my own companies, and one of the companies that I've developed was also already dealing with the computer vision. So it was kind of a bit easier for me to relate what the idea was, what the guys are going to build. So that was really helpful to get a kind of initial discussions and a bit more kind of a conviction on the initial phase. But of course, those are the guys with PowerPoint slides, nothing to show, and so on. So it takes us a bit longer just to kind of understand how they're also kind of progressing. And this is also maybe what kind of convinces, because engineers especially have this tendency to build something before they even kind of validate that with the market. For engineers, it's easier to build than actually talk to the customer, right? So that's why we kind of spend a bit more time really looking at how the team is progressing, how they validate, how they're obsessed with the fixing, building for a problem, for fixing the problem, not for building a great tech that nobody wants in the end. So that's what we were really focused on, and seeing that this is a senior team that is capable of talking to the customers. Despite not having the money, they've been still kind of progressing in the validation of the problem that they're aiming for. And this is what we like. We like to see founders which are obsessed about the problem to be solved, not about the tech issue itself. Because you have this saying that either you build a vitamin or a painkiller, right? And vitamin is great, but you don't have to take it. If you're really solving a crucial issue, then that's something worth building for.
I think there's something interesting in that, because we clearly saw some tech. We also saw some a problem, an actual problem that we could go solve. But we had this challenge of having the business case part of our pitch, because this is in defense, which is for VC and new thing, and was also in drones and drone payloads within that, which is kind of 2 orders of magnitude of new stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no big expensive market reports we could just refer to, and everybody knows the market does this thing. So how can we pitch a wonderful growth story into the future when nobody really knows how that is going to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what we also like is that there's so many companies building drones and so on, but in the end we also know that the market for the VC case, it has to be kind of a large. And what we like about here is that it's not focusing on strictly on one kind of a platform drones. It's more like a platform for addressing different types of use cases, different type of drones, and not focusing on building a specific one type. Yeah,
so basically, we focused on a fundamental problem, not on a specific product or a specific end user use case. What we do is that we finding small things in large areas in real time. That scales to all kinds of things. Some of them in defense.
Okay. So let's talk about testing.
Yes.
How did you test this?
That is another difficult thing, because especially in defense.
Yes.
Because as a startup, getting access to real testing, it's actually pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Because real testing requires actual soldiers trying to use what we make in real situations. And typically that's not something that happens until you have sold it. And as a startup that hasn't finished the product yet, and we coming from I'm a software developer, so in software development you always want to be agile and test as you build, and that is like completely opposite to that. We have been lucky enough that we've both been able to build early prototypes that we can test.
Yeah.
And we have some relations in Denmark where it seems that we will be getting some access, but it's surprisingly difficult. And I heard that mentioned a few times today also, that getting access to defense end users is crucial to not just for us, but for the whole startup ecosystem in general. And that's difficult in Europe. I was in last week. I was in Morocco as part of the US African Lion exercise. That is like every year they do a very big exercise with all their African partner countries, other allies. This year there was a specific focus on integrating new tech, especially unmanned tech. Unfortunately, I haven't seen something like that with such an open invitation in Europe. That would be wonderful. But there was basically a 3-week period of integrating new stuff and then a big exercise. And I was part of an observer program. For all kinds of random reasons, I ended up in that. It was quite interesting to see how that worked. And then at the end of that, there was a mini trade show where you could showcase your tech. So I actually ended up doing a pitch last Thursday to General Donahue, which was nothing I had planned for, but that was pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's of course it's one of the elements that is kind of difficult to access directly to some kind of a military exercise. But I think we're getting there also in Europe. Like there's more and more accelerators being created. Like we have a Dark Star, we have a Define in Finland, and we have NATO Diana, right? And they're also creating a kind of a local chapters to actually help really to access these capabilities of testing. But I also want to kind of mention that there is one trap in all of this kind of approach of testing things and so on. With the kind of, like in Ukraine even, there's this way of testing it directly with the units, field units, so you don't have to go through the whole kind of a chain and so on. But I also want to mention that there is one trap for all the founders building for defense, because we also have to remember that the user is not your buyer or is not your customer, right?
Yeah.
So in the end, you can optimize for building a great product for the end user, but then the buyer or that actually decision maker to buy the things is having a different incentives. So, you have to, really watch what you're building, because not always the greatest product wins.
And how do you go about doing that then?
Yeah, then you need to be also active more in the ecosystem, actually understanding, what are the incentives. And I think in defense, there's a bit more, I was myself involved in the different public tenders. So I know that whenever you're actually touching this kind of a public procurement and so on, sometimes there is a very that are hidden motivation behind it. Like I've been kind of finding one of the national tender, and despite having the best product, it was granted to IBM. Like probably because of nobody got fired by hiring IBM or something else, because you never know what happens in the background, right? I think in the defense we also are having the same risk, that there are some political decisions in which kind of a party you're going to go with, despite somebody else has the greatest product.
Yeah.
And I think from the fund perspective, that's why we're also kind of not purely betting on defense-only cases. That's why we also need to see a commercial case behind the technology that we're supporting, because we also think that the commercial case in the end is going to have a much bigger market than the defense itself.
And I think what we can do there as a small young company is to find our niche. So basically, we will not in the end try to sell to any military end user. We will just make a component. We make this thing. We'll make sure that it's very easy to buy for the drone makers or the integrators, and they will be our customers. We'll make sure that it's nice to integrate, it's easy to buy, it's easy to pick up for them, and then they will basically do the whole thing against the military organizations, because we cannot be set up to that. And the good side effect also is that it doesn't matter which of the primes or neo primes wins the tender. If what we make is necessary, we will basically deliver that to whoever wins.
Yeah. So we're saying earlier, I mean, 2 million pre-seed, that's obviously great, but it's not great if it doesn't come with partnership, really, does it? So discuss where you're going now and what do you need from a partnership? Like,
yeah, so maybe first from the partnership from our investors, we need to kick in the ass once in a while.
Yeah.
And I think that of course raising funding, you as a startup mostly think about the money in that. We needed some money to build the company, but we also wanted some investors that actually brought something that we didn't have.
Yeah.
And we had market knowledge, we had tech knowledge, but we didn't have any VC know-how. Some of us, we're 3 co-founders. Some of us had been in startups before, but we never founded the startup.
Yeah.
And we'd all been in private equity-owned companies. So we had a bit of like a post-private equity stress syndrome. And we're thinking in terms of being profitable and margins and all that, and found out that was really not what it was about. So changing that mindset, running faster, finding ways to get there earlier, I think that's been an eye-opener.
Yeah.
And I think like we're not only bringing this VC kind of a perspective, because being a founder before, you've been also going through the hurdles of building the company, fundraising, so you kind of learn the hard lessons, what is actually matters in those early stages, and how you need to kind of, what do you need to focus on, and what are the important elements. So of course they're kind of always focused on building the products, the tech and so on, but they should not forget that in the end, what we're looking for is to build a successful company. It's not only about the product they're building now. It's about, like setting up the team, setting up the way that actually, you build the culture, organization culture in the company that it can make you successful for the future as well. And this is something we have to bring as soon as possible also to the way how they're thinking about building it.
Yeah. Okay, we have 10 seconds left. Very quickly, we've all had a great day. There's been great talks. We've had very impressive people in the room, including yourselves. What are you taking away from Resilience Conference today?
Hopefully, new good contacts to get access to testing and end users, and integrating into various applications. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think a lot of great contacts, because I think that for this industry also to kind of develop in Europe, we also need to create the ecosystem to really support it. It will not happen by just having one fund, one accelerator. It needs to be a whole ecosystem of connecting the money, the founders, the government and military. So we all need to work together on it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a really interesting conversation, and thank you very much for staying and listening to us. We better go before we're kicked off, okay?